coming at such short notice. I have a short prepared statement that I'd like to read out about the events that unfolded at the House of Assembly today. The Deputy Commissioner and I have held close watch, as you can imagine, as the day unfolded. Our afternoon has been taken up with lots of debriefing that you might expect with the Acting Governor, as well as the Premier and his senior colleagues, as well as 2 senior members of the opposition. And we thought it was appropriate for us to end the evening just to share some of that conversation and to put some information out into the public that should be taken into context with some of the other information, particularly on social media and other places where there's not a lot of detail. We'll be happy to take a few questions at the end of it. So let's just start by recapping what we already know. This morning, a group of persons gathered around the House of Assembly shortly after 8 a.m. and they commenced a protest. Police officers were already on the scene monitoring the situation, and they advised those involved that the action they advised about the action if the protesters did not follow lawful instructions. Likewise, the police also spoke with protest organizers to underscore the importance of a lawful and peaceful protest. Throughout the morning, in an effort to allow the opening of the House of Assembly, officers engaged with protesters continually to warn them about their conduct and to encourage them to desist from obstructing the entrances to the grounds or the building. Once the Speaker of the House declared that the House would sit today, police initiated a positive action to open a path to the House. Officers approached the protesters that were blocking access, warned them that they were committing offences, and instructed them to desist. Immediately, the crowd surged, and some of the protesters assaulted the officers. Some officers deployed incapacitant spray in a proportionate response to disperse the crowd and to create a safe separation. The decision to de-escalate was taken later after the Speaker of the House announced that the House would not sit today. So the message that I want to share with the community is that it is important for the public to be aware that there's a very significant difference between peaceful, lawful protest and unlawful activity that threatens the democratic process in our country. It is regrettable that this incident has occurred, without a doubt. However, it is clear to us that there were elements among the protesters who were determined to confront the police who were acting in the lawful execution of their duties. The Bermuda Police Service is alive to the concerns that capture the minds of our community. We respect and uphold the constitutional rights of everyone to freedom of speech and to gather and to peacefully protest. But we remind protesters, again, and organizers, that their actions must be lawful and they must not intrude on the rights of others or impede on the rule of law. Finally, our investigators are reviewing video footage that was captured today to identify offenders with a view to preparing files for the DPP to review. We have received 1 complaint from a member of the public against a police officer, and that matter will also be investigated. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Who gave the order for the riot police to intervene?
So the way that our command structure works is we have 3 levels of command. So the gold commander is the person that decides on the strategy of whatever the operation is. I don't want to get into technical terms. The gold commander is one of our superintendents, and their job was to set a plan that would achieve a goal, and the goal was to balance and facilitate a peaceful protest with our responsibility to ensure that the House of Assembly is open. So in and amongst that plan came a decision to use officers with protective equipment because it was clear that the situation had escalated.
So did the instruction to use this level of force come from the Governor, the Speaker of the House, or Premier Michael Dunkley?
None of the above. The only people that can instruct police officers to use lawful force as police officers.
Now, were the police officers wearing body cameras at the time of the incident?
Yes, they were, and that forms most of the video footage that we captured today.
Now, if officers were there prior to the protesters arriving, why did they not ensure those areas were kept clear from the get-go rather than allowing people to get there and then have to move them?
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate question. I think you have to consider that it wasn't a very clear development. It was a bit of an evolution. So, we anticipated protests. We had police officers on the grounds. We learned some lessons from March of this year. We were thinking about the house itself. We have to make sure that we don't allow too many people inside because the public gallery is limited. And I think, what happened at the street level was more of an organic development that just sort of happened. And by the time crowds gathered and blocked those entrances, we were at a point where we had to think about the use of force. Whenever we use force, it is after trying every other option that we can think of. Police officers don't walk into a situation and pull out tasers and batons and incapacitant spray. So what commenced around 8:30 was a dialogue to say, listen, folks, you're welcome to protest all day long. You can't block this access point. And then by the time that escalated to the point where we used force, then you saw what you've seen in the video.
Could you clarify what offense was being committed to warrant such a response?
Well, the general offense would be just obstruction. So there's an offense under the Summary Offences Act to obstruct lawful duty, lawful business, people moving along the street. You can't block other people from doing what they are allowed to do. But there are some specific offences that I think the deputy has.
Offences under the Parliament Act. Sorry. Some offences under the Parliament Act, interfering with ministers and the legislature, disturbance to the legislature. There are offences under the Criminal Code, particularly, as the Commissioner has already mentioned, assault. All of those offences will be considered in our review. As the Commissioner said, it's important that we investigate this fully. It's important that any complaints that are made by members of the public who are affected by the police operation this morning are also properly investigated.
I think was it arrested or charged?
Yeah, one of our officers was quite seriously assaulted this morning by a man wielding quite a large stick, suffering welts to his legs, and the suspect in that case has been arrested. In terms of the other offences, a decision was taken to try to proceed by summons against the people who were suspected of assaulting other officers, rather than to try and effect an arrest at that point.
Can we get some final questions from Bermuda, please?
Commissioner, can you just address what the difference was between today and the protest earlier in the year?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question as well. But although the circumstances are similar, I think the significant difference is just the way it evolved. So if you think back to March, that actually started as a peaceful protest on the Friday before. By the time the sort of criminality crept in, it was the following Monday or Wednesday or whatever day it was, where protesters decided that they would ramp up their activity and stop the debate from even happening by blocking the access. Now, at that point, we started the same process we started today, where we engaged the people that were blocking the doors, we engaged the organizers, the leaders, and started to have that dialogue and give people an opportunity to climb down from their position, stop breaking the law, let the democratic process proceed, and carry on with your protests. Now, that didn't end in a confrontation, because if you recall, the final decision by the Speaker was to close the House and to push the debate back. And then by the Friday, I think it was, the whole thing had de-escalated because, if I remember correctly, the bill was taken off the order paper. So we didn't get to that point. we got to that point this morning because there was no peaceful protest by the people at the gates. There may have been peaceful protests by other people, and so we just engaged those people and said, you can protest, you just can't block access. So what took a day or two to evolve last time evolved at the outset because it was a clear criminal offense right from jump, as they say.
There's a potential, the House is sitting on next Friday, there's a potential for protests to be out again, your message to them.
Well, you know, I said this back in March. We need to be clear that we must make space in our community for peaceful protests. That is part of the democratic process. So there are no issues coming from, certainly not from law enforcement. And we demonstrated that last time. We worked very closely with the peaceful protesters and the ones that were blocking access. As I said, that eventually that problem disappeared. But what our message is clear. Peaceful protest is built into our Constitution, and we're here not only to facilitate that, but to defend it as a constitutional right. Where we run into a problem is where people engage, they start off engaging in protest under the banner of freedom of speech and then impinge on the rights of others. And the law is clear on this point. The rule of law is crystal clear. Your rights cannot be used to impinge the rights of other people.
Thank you. I think we have one more question. Okay, one more question from Sergio.
I mean, as long as they're relevant to this case, I mean, I'm quite happy to.
Is there another matter? Can I address it?
No, this was specifically to today's protest. So if anybody has any other questions relevant to today's protest, then we'll take them now, and we can look at your question at another point in time, Jasmine. Owen?
Are there any plans to release the body cam footage from the scene today publicly?
Well, I can say no right now, and part of that is just because, you know, there's a whole legal issue around CCTV footage and body cam footage that we're exploring with the AG's chambers. Other countries have passed specific legislation to help cut through the problem that when you put other people's information out in the public domain, you might be actually cutting across their rights to privacy. What a lot of countries do is they pixel out images and things like that, and you know, we haven't advanced to that point. So our policy as of today is that we do not release CCTV and we do not release body cam video.
Any other questions related to today's protest? Thank you, members of the media.
Thank you, everyone.